most of the angling community is wrong about spawning. Let's dive in.
Oh, that's a big one.
No, dude! Nee, soks, nee, soks.
Oh, nee!
What?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Oh!
17 and a half.
It's a big one, man.
No way.
Yo, this is good one. Yo. This is insane, man.
The legend is gone.
Wow. Today I got a short day off. Well, the weather's supposed to be horrible, but now I'm wearing sunnies. And that looks pretty damn nice outside, but the wind is horrible. And just in half an hour ago there was like wet snow coming out of the sky. Even though it doesn't look like it, the wind is pretty strong at the moment. So with just a couple of days left, I'm a bit bummed out that we got cut short on the amount of fishing that we could do in the final week of the season in the Netherlands. And what a season it has been, especially spring season. I don't know about you guys, but it felt a bit off, if you know what I mean. Shallow water fishing wasn't as great as I was thinking it would be. Not much grouse in the shallows. Not a lot of fish on it as well. And even with these really good spring conditions, I mean 2 weeks of full sun, 17, 18, 19 degrees at some points, hardly any wind. Papa, you would expect fish would be on the shallows. Hell, even a lot of people were saying the fish are spawning and we should either leave them alone, or it was used as an excuse. The fish are not biting because they are fully spawning. Well, yes and no. The past couple of weeks we had 2 or 3 locations that were productive. That was after weeks and weeks of searching and fishing and crossing off several areas that were just not producing. The fish we caught over there, most of them hadn't spawned. I'll throw some photos up on the screen, and I'm still producing a final spring fishing video. But the idea that with 10 degrees water temperature, or sometimes even 12 degrees water temperature, fish have spawned? No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work in the sense that many of these fish, they stay out for quite longer than we expect it to be. And I think there's a couple of reasons to it, and I will try to give a visual representation of why that is. And what, I'm no biologist by any means, but what my idea is why fish are definitely not spawning as early as we always thought they would. Everybody was saying with these really nice temperatures, oh, the fish probably have spawned at the end of February already. And they haven't. And now it's end of March. And most fish haven't spawned either on the big lakes. Even though we had great conditions, 2.5 weeks of full sun, almost no wind, shallow areas heating up. But they haven't spawned. So why is that? And how come that most of the angling community has got this all wrong? Including me, I must admit. I've been saying this as well, like, oh, with these temperatures, spawning must kick off. But that hasn't been the case. And I will try to give a visual representation of what I believe is happening, why I think we had it wrong for many years, and also give you some examples of my experience in Sweden, on Vänern for instance, where the spawning window is completely different compared to some of the water systems in the Netherlands. But again, I'm no biologist, so I might mess up some details, but it's just from a personal experience out on the water and from the fish that I have caught that clearly haven't spawned yet. So with that being said, let's dive into this topic and let me know what you think.
Now, before we kick off, let me say one more time that this is my personal opinion based on the experience that I gained over the years. We did catch some pike that spawned, but it's like 1 out of 10, maybe even less than that. And yeah, once the season progresses, you do notice that more and more fish will be spawned, but a lot of these big fish haven't spawned yet. And I'm curious to know your thoughts and ideas. And if you have anything to add, feel free to do so in the comment section down below. Let's dive into how depicted in 3 different scenarios, where I will showcase why I think spawning is a little different than we learned over the years. The first scenario is, well, let's just say that this depicts how the water temperature progresses and how the fish behave and react to that specific water temperature. Again, don't bitch about my drawing skills because they are not the greatest. So this is the waterline. We got a bunch of fish over here on the bottom. And let's say the surface temperature is 8 degrees. And then when you dip your toes a little lower, you're already at 5 degrees. And then it goes to 2 degrees. Oh. Now, let's say we have a sunny day with hardly any wind. And the rays are coming down and start heating up the surface temperature. You will see an increase in temperature on the surface, and especially if you have some wind here that is pushing in this direction, you will notice that this warmed up surface temperature or surface water gets pushed towards the shallows. It starts to accumulate over here. And then you will see the temperature rise even more. And then it could be that it's 8 degrees over here, 9 degrees over here, 10, and then sometimes even 12 or 13 degrees over here. What happens is that the fish are checking this water temperature on the shallows because they know that the spawning time is coming up due to the length of days. They go in and they go back out. They do that multiple times a day. I met a guy in Sweden who did some research with pike that had transmitters on them. And there were pike that were scouting the shallows in the bays for more than 40 times a day, moving in and out, just to see if the conditions were right. And then with the bigger fish, they often see that the pike would be in a bay for a longer time, moved out, and that longer period that they were in the bay usually indicated that they were spawning, because they didn't return for a long time after that prolonged time inside the bay. So that's a cool fact that confirmed the idea that we had about how the temperature in shallow areas progresses. But going in and out that many times to check if the conditions are alright, that was totally new for me. Let's do a different scenario, because this is the thing, in an ideal condition like we had the past couple of weeks. Yeah, for sure, the water heats up like this, but we don't have these ideal conditions all the time. So I will showcase a scenario where we have this temperature bar again. Let's say it is 9 degrees again. I think we did 5 and 2 degrees. But now we have more wind. We have clouds. Don't hate on my cloud, guys. So we have clouds. And also quite some strong winds pushing again in the same direction. But that big wind is gonna create choppy waves. So we don't have the sun heating up the surface, but we do have the wind pushing that 9 degrees towards this side over here. But what we also get due to the waves is that we also get that 5 degree zone being pushed in that direction. So we get a temperature drop on the shallows. Suddenly it's not even 12 degrees anymore. No. It can go down towards, 7, maybe 6 degrees. And if the fish were checking this out or staying in the shallow zone because they were expecting spawning, and then suddenly the temperature goes down, That's one of the reasons why they get pushed down back towards the deeper water, because the conditions aren't favorable. Plus, if the waves are big enough so they get chopped around and pushed around on the shallows, normally this will be a good scenario during summer or autumn. But during spring, and if spawning is on their mind, they don't like to be in the choppy scenarios like this. So this is one of the reasons why spawning is a little bit more tricky. It's not just the length of the days or the temperature on the shallows, because it can change around a lot. Now let's head back a little towards the calm conditions that we had and why spawning doesn't occur just based on surface temperature that we measure all the time. Because let's go back towards that 9 degrees, 5 degrees and 2 degrees. That surface temperature again. It is flat calm. The sun is up nicely again, heating up the surface. But the only thing that's actually heating up is the surface temperature. And the surface, like really on top of the surface, can be 12 or 13 degrees. But if you go a little lower, like on the bottom where the pike usually are and need to be for spawning, it can still be 5 degrees or even colder than that. If you don't have the wind pushing on the shallows and start to mix the water like you want it to be mixed, let me draw that again. If there's no wind to push the surface temperature down and mix with the colder temperature here, you get a big discrepancy between the surface and what's actually close to the bottom. And even on spots that are only like a meter deep, you could still have the surface quite warm. And then when you just go a little lower than that, you can have a significantly lower temperature down there. And I think that's one of the main reasons why these really calm conditions that we had, it was either calm and full sun, like this scenario, or the previous scenario that we had, where the clouds started to come in, and then you didn't have the water temperature being heated up, but you did have a big increase in wind. It was only either calm conditions or super windy conditions. And with these super windy conditions, you get the big open water being mixed with the surface temperature as well. And that does decrease the overall temperature, especially on the shallows where the water is pushed against. Alright, let's go to what I think is the most common misconception about pike and spawning. And one of the things I see happen all the time online, but also with people on my boat when I'm out guiding or hanging out with certain friends, is that they think every single fish spawns at the same time. If the conditions are right, all the fish will move in for spawning. But imagine a big lake like this. Let's take Vanern for instance, and I'm gonna pick a specific color that stands out a little bit. So let's just go for pink. Hopefully this works. Let's say that all these little pink lines are fish that are migrated over the lake. Now they are towards the deeper water during the colder season, but now the temperature starts to move up, and let's say they really love this particular bay for spawning. It takes a damn long time for them to migrate from this zone all the way into here. So what you will have is that this first batch will come in and go back out, and then we'll have a second batch come in and move out, and then we have the latecomers that move in and come out. And this is a really messy sketch, but I think this really shows why not every single fish is in these bays at the same time. If all the fish from a lake like Vanern would move in towards the bays during spawning, when the conditions hit the right, when the conditions are just right, we probably don't have much water left in the bays and just pike everywhere. And that's really never the case. And that brings me towards my third and most logical conclusion. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. Imagine if we go back towards this scenario, let me clean it up. So imagine if all the fish would migrate at once inside the bay. Not only would it be super crowded inside that bay, but it would also create a huge liability, because what if the water drops in that particular bay? What if the water temperature goes down because there is a cold front coming in? The entire population would release its eggs inside that bay, and then due to some unforeseen calamity, all the eggs are gone in just one instance. The entire batch of fresh pike will be destroyed because of some irregularity, and that happens all the time. Temperatures change, climate changes, water levels drop, water level gets regulated on the lake. Nature has its own way to prevent or to protect itself. I think that's the better word. To protect itself against scenarios like this. So that's also why fish start to move in different waves and come in and out. It's sort of a fail-safe system.
So spawning is more spread out because there's a lot of variables that we don't know. We often measure temperature based on the surface temperature that we read with either the transducer in our trolling motor or with the transducer on the back of the boat. And those are measuring the surface temperature. But if you stick your feet down, like you do with swimming, or your hands, you will often notice that it's pretty damn cold just below the surface. And once you go deeper and deeper, the temperatures are quite cold. That in combination with the biological reasons that fish really want to spread their chances and limit the, well, chances of a population collapse. So it's a little bit of risk mitigation. And there's also the factor that I think it's a combination of length of days and temperature, and not so much just temperature alone, but maybe the lack of vegetation as well. That definitely made spawning start a little later than normal. But again, I'm talking about big lake systems. In the smaller venues, the water warms up much faster in all the different water layers, and especially in smaller water systems, you don't have that deep water. Now, this does look pretty good, but it's not fishable. I've tried it multiple times, but there's not any fish in as far as I know. Maybe small ones, but I see some coarse anglers out there, but the results are very poor. Yeah, but if you do head out during the final days, I wouldn't worry too much about spawning. If they're spawning, they're not feeding, so I don't think it damages the fish that much. And if after spawning they start feeding, yeah, just handle them like we always handle them, which is put them back as quickly as possible, limit the time out of the water, cut hooks if needed, don't use a landing net if you don't have to, and take care of the fish, as always. Take care of the future generations. And if you do see eggs and shit dripping out, yeah, that's an unfortunate hazard. It happens sometimes, but you can't really time it. I know you want to avoid it, but you can't really time it. If you want to avoid it completely, you should stop fishing the entirety of March. We had it happen in Sweden in August. So, how do you time something like this?
Well, this is a different video than we normally do on the channel, but if you stay to the end, thanks for watching, guys. I'm gonna do a couple more tactical videos for members only, and we will drop a couple new spring fishing videos the coming weeks. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so, and maybe I'll catch you in the next video. See ya. Cheers.